I put some questions on my slide, and I would like you to get a little bit involved. My first question was, how can we identify conflict in an early stage? In order to be able to prevent conflict, we need to see and to understand what are the factors that cause conflict. So my first question is this: how could you prevent, like, how could you identify conflict in an early stage? How would you define conflict in an early stage? And if someone would like to answer, you can do it freely.
Alina, I would like to say something here. If we are thinking, even in kindergarten, when two children have two different opinions on something, so it's about different opinions. I want something, you want something else. So this is where the conflict starts. If we are thinking this is the primary level, then we can extend it to adults, of course. So when we have a conflict, that means we have different views and opinions. And here we start to manage this conflict furthermore. So I think this is the basic level.
Yes, exactly, Kalina, you're very right. This is the basic level. And in order to be able to identify the different opinions, it's not very hard to see where two opinions collide or like they're not the same. But the cause of conflict is the point where two people or two groups of people cannot really find a common ground, I would say. Because two different opinions can exist in the same space as long as two people or like two groups choose to respect themselves and to be able to accept in a way that there are different opinions and there is no general truth or general universal truth that can be applied for everyone, if you understand what I want to say. And to move on, my second question is, what is your experience regarding conflicts? How do you usually solve interpersonal conflict? What is your experience regarding conflicts? I mean, maybe you like to read about this topic, or maybe you have been into conflicts in your life. Probably everyone has been into a conflict, even if it was a smaller one or like a bigger one. And I would like, if some of you want to share from your experience, I would like to know how you handled that conflict. That's why I actually put the second question: how do you usually solve an interpersonal conflict?
Hello, I would like to go about the conflict. The way I solve the conflicts, it's about trying to understand the person, what they come about, what are their thoughts about it. Sorry, I didn't sleep all night, so I'm still trying to find out the words. And when you understand the person, like when you let the person express her or his thoughts, then the person starts to be understood and starts to change the mind. And also another idea is to reframe the conflict as a debate, like we're not fighting, we're debating ideas. So this is changing the dynamic of the situation. That's all.
Yeah, that's a very good intervention. Yeah, it's amazing to have a debate where both parties can actually be able to express their opinions in a respectful way, and sometimes to be able to agree to disagree. That means that sometimes you will not be able to change the other person's ideas, but that could prevent the conflict because you just agree to the other people's opinions, but that doesn't mean you have to actually implement them in your life. So you prevent some conflict by reaching a common ground, I would say. Thank you very much for your intervention.
Welcome.
I will move on to the next slide. Moving on to conflict resolution in education. So I identified some of very good means of preventing conflict in education. As we said before, mediation, like being able to mediate between different opinions to reach a common ground. That really needs communication and active listening, probably. And then it's very important to identify the root causes of conflict. So what makes you think in this way? The root causes of a conflict can be, I have a different opinion about the religion, for example. What is the root cause for that? Maybe I had an experience that made me have a bad view about something, but that can be changed probably if we are able to communicate and to see maybe other people's experiences that can be better than ours, so that can change our view. And then at the bigger, like when we have the bigger image, it's very good to have a to build conflict resilience, especially in conflict-torn areas where conflict is a constant, that's the constant in the society. There are conflicts everywhere. So building a conflict resilient society is a very big task, but I think it starts with education, and kids, like children in general, can absorb this knowledge faster than adults can, and it's very important to start with children and in schools. For example, the Montessori methods in education use three very important elements: humility, trust, and empathy. So I would say that these three elements want to build a human being that is capable to accept others. Humility, in a way, means that you're not considering yourself superior to others, so you can view them as your equal. You can build trust with others around you. You trust that they will listen to you. You trust that they will actually be good people to you, so you don't go around thinking that the world is a bad place. And empathy, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, or being able to understand that other people have other experiences and you need to understand why they think and do stuff in a certain way. Okay. And I put a long quote over here. I will read it for you and we'll try to analyze it a little bit. It's actually Article 26 from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And it says, education shall be directed toward the full development of the human personality and to the strengthening of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. It shall promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship among all nations, racial or religious groups, and shall further the activities of the United Nations for the maintenance of peace. This is a very good quote, or like a good article to analyze. So it says that education shall be directed toward the full development of the human personality. So you don't just go to school, or like you don't just learn about mathematics or English language, but you develop yourself as a human being, being able to grow up in a world where you can see the differences between a country and another. You can understand how a system is built, and you respect human rights and fundamental freedoms. You're able to accept different people coming from different parts of the world as well. As it says, moving on, promote tolerance, understanding, friendship among all nations. So I think this begins with education at home, and then also in schools, as we will see further on. And if you have anything to add, please just interrupt me and add more things if you feel like you have a point to make. So what is peace education exactly? I put here 2 little explanations. Education for non-violence and peace includes training, skills, information directed towards cultivating a culture of peace based on human rights principles. We can see that these key elements repeat themselves. Even in the previous article that I read for you, there was the same idea. Teaching peace or peace education wants to promote non-violence and also information directed towards a culture of peace, and also mentioning human rights. And also, as we started back at the first slides, this education, peace education, includes the skills and attitudes necessary to recognize potential conflicts. So in order to prevent conflict and to be able to live in a peaceful society, you need individuals that are able to recognize conflict in a very early stage and to be able to prevent it, even if it's like a small conflict between neighbors or bigger conflict between different groups within the society. But we will see how important it is to understand peace at an individual level, because that's how you start to build a society, starting with your own self and then moving on to other people. I really like this idea. The way a school is run can either fuel conflict or build peace. So you can see that in a lot of schools, children are taught about history in a specific way, and sometimes teaching history in a biased way, let's say, trying to show that one group was better than the other, can fuel conflict, and people, like children, can grow up with the idea of another group of people in my country is lesser than we are. For example, I can give you an example from Romania. We have a lot of Hungarians in our region, in Transylvania, and there is always a tension between Romanians and Hungarians based on our history. And it is very important how we teach Romanian history, because that can fuel conflict or can create tension, because sometimes Romanians can consider themselves superior to Hungarians, or the other way around. Hungarians can consider themselves superior. And I put the question there, what are some aspects in their peace promotion in schools? This is also an aspect, like teaching history in a biased way that doesn't show neutral or doesn't show both sides. It just shows one side of the events, like one opinion of the historical events. But it also can be about physical interaction between teacher and kids. In a lot of countries, even today, violence is used in schools to educate kids, and it should not be in this way. I would consider that to be wrong. Using some, like, beating kids to pay attention to classes, it's like a very old method of maintaining order in class, but I would say that is very wrong, and it makes children develop in a weird and very bad way, I would say. So I think that's also an element.
Yes, Alina, I would like. Sorry.
Yeah.
I would like to highlight the family's importance. Besides the school, we start in a family, a small group of people that are teaching us some moral principles and behaviors. And I think it's very important the way the family starts with this education before going to school. And some of the behaviors are already solidifying before going to school. So it's very difficult when you already have some preconceptions, and then going to school, it may help you, of course, but starting with the family, education also, it's something not to be neglected and to think about this.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's very true. Education starting from home is very important. And usually children have a very strong emotional bond with their parents, which sometimes can be very hard to, like, parents teaching their children some things at home can really impede children to have a different view upon the world. So they take the experience of their parents and they think that's the way the world works, because it's also part of children's psychology. Children just have an experience based on what they see around themselves. They don't know the world as an adult knows the world. So they can just learn by seeing the world around them. So parents are the first caregivers, the first educators of a children. So then, so then it is very hard to combat some of the thought process that is going on in a children, like in a child's brain. Sometimes even like teachers trying to educate children on topics like gender equality or LGBTQ plus rights, sometimes it can be very hard, because if they get this education from home, it will be harder for them to change their views. And to move on, what are some strategies to promote peace in schools? And I would say that some strategies are to have this in place, to have a system that supports peace. And as I said, peace building in education can have 3 levels. It can start with the individual, then it can go on the interpersonal, from a person to another, and then at large for the community, for the whole community. But it's always starting with the individual, because the way you position yourself when it comes to conflicts and so on, it's very important, because then you will be able to manage a conflict in a healthy way. Or if you have faulty thoughts, and if you have a narrow view of the world, it will be very hard for you to manage a conflict. And further on, peace education can be understood as both a philosophy or a process. You can learn about peace education in school. You can learn about what it means to have a peaceful society, and that's more like a philosophy. And it can also be a process where you build a system, a resilient system. You have schools, you have a good health system, you have understanding between different parts of society, and you try to build a strong economy that sustains the ambitions of young workers and so on. And that's a process. It's a long process to build a healthy and stable society. Yeah, as I said, peace starts with me, embrace it too. That was a quote that the school used to work with and to use a lot. And I said, like, peace has 3 levels: within individuals, interpersonal relationships, and the community at large. I mentioned that before. And we're moving on to the role of NGOs in education and peace building. We are an NGO here in Romania, and we have multiple branches in Africa and Austria as well. So it's very important for us to understand how we can make a change in our societies and what's our role, basically. There are three types of education that we know about: formal education, informal education, and non-formal education. Formal education is the traditional education that we get in schools usually, that everyone knows. Informal education is education that you can get throughout your life. You can learn how to drive, you can learn how to cook, you can do an extra course online about photography, about something that you are passionate about. That's more informal because it's not so structured in the way that the school system works. And then we have non-formal education, which is used mostly with NGOs. And this is more based on experience and the way you develop yourself outside of school. And there is no curriculum that is used for non-formal education. It's more based on activities, experience, games, workshops, conferences, and so on. And I would like to know, what is your experience with these types of education? If you can describe, how do you feel about this type of educations? Or if you had any conflicts in schools, in the schools that you've been part of, if you ever felt discriminated, or if you feel like your teachers had an impact on you as you were growing up. I would like to hear about your experiences. I am an English teacher, so I feel like I'm learning more about children and about education as I'm going through my job. So I would like to know if you as adults have had a good experience with like education in general.
Ruben, would you like to come in here?
Hello, can I say something?
Sure.
Okay, so I have experienced the three types of education, and of course the formal education when we go to school and we have that structured learning, and informal education where you're in the house, probably you just learn to do things out of experience and all. But then I want to talk about non-formal education. I was a member of growing up, I was a member of the Boys Brigade, just like the Boy Scout. Um, so there we could learn at any place. I mean, it could be inside a hall, we could learn outside, you could learn on the field. I mean, the environment was not a limitation, like learning could just happen anywhere. And for me, I feel it was more fun because I can remember most of the things we we did then as a kid. I can remember we going to the streets to sweep the streets and all. There was no structured curriculum per se, but the fact that learning happened anywhere, and then the fact that it has a way of putting the society where the person finds himself into consideration is key for me, because we come from different communities, we have different cultures and all, and so I feel the impact of non-formal education has been really key. So now we were taught that when an older person is probably trying to do something that seems difficult, you could just help the person to lift it up. And it was in Boys Brigade we learned all of those things. Not as if we can learn it in all these other places, but the curriculum, for example, may restrict certain things that may be necessary when it comes to formal education. So that's really what I want to say about non-formal education. So I think the NGO to CPVP falls in what we do as an NGO falls under the non-formal education, if I'm not wrong. So I believe it will go a long way if we incorporate the whole peace education into what we do, and because it would put the environment into perspective, it would put the culture of the people into perspective, and there's no restriction of learning with respect to a particular curriculum or so. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good intervention. Yes, it is very true that the non-formal education, because it's based on experience and your experience, it's more free compared to formal education. So I think it has more chances of breaking stereotypes or changing the way we see things. And as you said, I have a similar experience because I was growing up in a small town. Being part of an NGO opened up my world in a way, and I got to meet foreign people, and I had to talk to them, to interact with them during our projects and during our activities. And that really challenged my way of seeing the world, really challenged my way of seeing other people and different cultures. And I learned much more than learning from a book, just sitting in class and reading about different countries. I learned more from the people that are actually from those countries. So I think non-formal education really opens up our eyes in a way and really makes us more, it makes us accept different cultures and different customs, different habits, and so on. And also, I would like to ask you, which one of these three forms of education you think would be most efficient in promoting peace? I mean, I'm not excluding one or the other one. I think they're all important, but which ones you think have a bigger impact? As I already told you my opinion about this, but you can also tell me what do you feel about this.
I want to give it a try, and my opinion is that non-formal education is the best in promoting peace, because we have to interact together, and it's also the experience that you gain in life, because in school they can teach you something, but they don't teach you actually about life, and even in the informal education they don't teach about life. So when you go through life to different experiences and you interact with different people, you learn new values and you challenge other values that no longer work for you, and usually you learn to interact, and the next time you develop your personality each time. So I think it's the best one, the non-formal education, to develop that high personality that that makes you to understand the people around you, and that teach you how to interact in the most right way with someone, and how to respect the other values. This is my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your opinion and for your contribution. If there's someone else that wants to add something.
Yes, I just. Oh, sorry.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I want to say that non-formal education, to an extent, for me, goes a long way to promote peace building. Yeah, I remember in Nigeria, we usually travel to our hometowns once a year. So most times when we travel, maybe towards the end of the year for the Christmas celebrations and all that, during that period, you get to interact with your family, extended family relations and all that. And this is an aspect of peace building where you get to correlate and, backs in that euphoria of seeing people around you and, staying together, sharing together, accommodating one another, having that laughter, love around. That goes a long way. I know in a sense it's not a strict and structured setting as well, but you get to learn a lot of things where they wouldn't teach you in schools. You get to learn, living together, respecting each other's views and and every other thing. So I will still stick with non-formal education so much, and that it goes a long way in teaching a whole lot of things that a structured learning in our schools wouldn't do. So like Alex said, I think non-formal education is what I will go for. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. Kalina, do you want to add something?
Yes, Alina, as you said, all of them are important, but of course, when you're in school and have a structured education, you are doing that because you have to. But you can come across on some teacher that it's very, very into teaching you something else, not something else, but something different besides the structured knowledges that you're receiving, and that can have an impact on you. They can open your eyes and tell you that it's not all about going to school, of course. But in the end, non-formal education, I think it's the best version, because we are all aware and conscious about us as adults, that we want to do that. We, for example, being in an NGO is a non-formal education, and going from a background to another background, it can give you value. As here in CPVP, we are coming from different backgrounds, cultural and social backgrounds, and we are intertwining and discussing about different aspects of cultural differences, but also similarities. And we are learning throughout our whole life. So that's the key point I would like to stress on. So learning never ends. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you have any other experience with maybe non-formal education that changed opinions about a topic or another, and you would like to share with us, or maybe being part of a project that made you want to do more, want to, like, maybe some project inspired you to do more in your society. I would be interested to know about that as well. I think it's something that shows us how this type of activities can change our perspective, or they can push us to be better. Or maybe if you have any idea of a project that we as an NGO could work on, that would be very useful to have, or something to focus on. If not, I can tell you about what I consider to be very important here in Romania, for example. I would think that we're developing in a lot of ways, and our education system is improving, but at a slower pace. So I would think our students need a lot more dialogue. They need to learn how to have a healthy debate, as we said before, in order to be able to overcome conflict. As I was doing some research for our project, I found out that Romania is the third country in Europe for bullying in schools, which shows we still have problems with communication or interpersonal communication and interaction. So children don't really know how to behave that well, and maybe they have a pattern of violent behavior coming from home, coming from their house, and they have the same behavior in schools. So I would think that in Romania we really need to focus on conflict management in schools, even though you would not think about that, but it's very present even today. And if you don't have anything to add on, I would move forward. Okay. Yeah, pretty much this was my presentation, but if you still want to add some more things about future projects or ideas that inspire you to talk about your
Hello, Alina. Can you hear me? Hello. Yeah, I want to talk about in the course of your presentation, you said something about active listening. Active listening. I think that's a very good point. You get to a point where I mean, one of the reasons why we have conflicts, because one party doesn't really want to know why the other party is behaving or acting the way he is. I think that's a very serious, even in the cases where you bring teachers or tutors or lecturers to intervene as a mediators, they still don't even want to listen to both parties. I mean, it's frustrating. I think that discourages conflict resolution between two parties, where even where the person who was supposed to help out, listen to both parties, just comes and maybe punishes and flogs both of them and doesn't listen to both sides of the story, or so I think one of maybe trying to teach or educate not just the students but even the teachers, as it were, the act of active listening. When a case comes to them, maybe two students or two pupils are quarreling or fighting about a particular stuff, and there is conflict, obvious conflict, and there is need to, and when there's a need to try to manage this conflict, who listens? Do they have the skill to really sit down and listen to both sides of the story and come to a compromise or a middle ground, as you said, a common ground where both parties are happy afterwards and everybody understands why this was why I said this was why I thought, this was why, all these, ask the necessary questions, the whys and the hows, and it makes for a better, proper understanding of both parties. So that's just all I have to just chip into.
Thank you very much. Yes, that was a very good point to add up on on what I said before and during my presentation. It is very important to teach children at a very young age how to actively listen to someone else, because then they will build up this idea of actually listening and not just wanting to give their opinion straight ahead. And then when you reach the adult age, it will be even easier for you to put yourself in someone else's place and so on. And we do not see this happening in formal education very often, because the schools are very crowded, teachers have a lot of children to deal with. It's very hard to be a teacher for 30 kids in the same class, and sometimes you run out of time, you don't get a chance to have a one-on-one communication. So that's why I think a lot of people have a better experience with non-formal education, because usually there are smaller groups of people that work and interact, so it's easier for you to actually be able to talk to each person. And I would say this would be a good alternative for the formal education or for the education system to have smaller classes, to be able to interact, the teachers to be able to interact one-on-one with the children. So in this way, you can address personal needs, because every child has a different need, different experience, and so on. So this is also a very important element for a better education system, but it will take probably a longer time to build that.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your time. This was my presentation, and if you still have some other things to add, I would be happy to hear.
Okay. I also want to add that I don't know if you can hear me, Alina.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I also want to add. I also believe that NGOs can partner with ministries of education. I mean, that's where we are integrating both formal education and non-formal education. So NGOs can also partner with the ministries of education and probably sit down and maybe find a way of somehow integrating peace studies into the curriculum. I believe it will also go a long.
We cannot hear you anymore. Maybe.
Hello.
Yeah, that's it. Go ahead. We can hear you. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. So as I was saying, NGOs can partner with the Ministry of Education to find a way of integrating peace education or peace studies into the curriculum. And of course, part of the partnership could be to also probably not limit that education to a particular, I don't know how to put it now, to a particular structure. I mean, to a particular structure, but to be flexible enough to adapt it to the environment where the school is located and all. So I believe that partnership will go a long way to promoting peace education. I mean, where the NGOs like us probably partner with the Ministry of Education, I believe it would go a long way too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, it's very important to involve the local authorities and the national authorities into this, because they are the ones that pretty much decide on the education system and the curriculum and so on. And I would think this would actually make a real big change. Probably if we have like a strong idea about we want to change and we advocate for this, we can actually be heard. But I feel like this takes a lot of effort and a lot of time, but that's part of building a process. That's the peace process, basically. So it's part of building a better system, which takes time and effort, and that's very true. Also, I would like to ask you, because we're like from an international, we're in an international setting right now. Everyone has a different experience. Maybe you can share from your personal experience from like the formal education system in your countries. What do you feel like that there can be improved? what are the pros and cons of your education system, let's say. I mentioned some things about the Romanian education system, and I would be interested to know maybe from your experience.
Sorry, do you mean formal education?
Yeah, like the education system, the schools in your country, do you feel like they address this topic a lot? You said, like you already said that you feel like there should be more uh, more in the curriculum about peace education and so on. I feel like this is the case everywhere in the world, but maybe our team from Austria can also tell us more, because this is a different perspective maybe.
I have an opinion about the education, and I want to talk about the system in Netherlands because I have friends that study there at university. They are from Romania, and in Netherlands, the teachers, they are open to feedback. Like if there is something wrong at the classes or after the classes, they always ask for feedback to see what to improve and what did they do wrong. And I think this system could be also very helpful in Romania, because in Romania sometimes the if they are a teacher, they think that they are the best. In some of the teachers, not everybody, because I had this experience in university in Romania, and they act like they are the best, that they are like this, and who are you to say this and to be better than them? So if you come with something better, they tend to disqualify you. But I think the feedback idea is a very good improvement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is very true. Yeah, I had the chance to study in the Netherlands as well, and I can say that's very true. And the way teachers talk to you is in a very informal way. They ask you to call them by their names, and they kind of consider you as they consider you as their equal. So I think that's very helpful for a person to develop and to gain more confidence, because when you feel like your teacher is not judging you, or when you feel like your teacher is trying to actually help you improve, you put more effort into your learning and developing yourself. So I think it's very important, and it also develops a good relationship between teachers and students. They also help you find a job maybe, and they give you more opportunities than a teacher that will consider themselves superior to you. So I can see that being a very important part of the education system. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add another thing, like when the teacher it's your friend, like when the frame of friendship is set up, like it helps the communication. So when there is no communication, and when there is a gap between you and a person, then there is conflict, there is problems, the people can't get along. So yeah, this is my idea.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, this type of the teacher being your superior can create a lot of conflict indeed, because especially when you get to university, you feel like you're already an adult and you feel like you want to be treated as an equal, I would think. And maybe this can create a conflict between your teacher that doesn't want to, your professor that doesn't want to recognize that you're like an equal and you can do as bad, like as good as he is doing, or do you feel like there can be other conflict situations in schools because of the teacher-student interaction, besides like the relationship between children and teachers? Maybe if the teacher is of another nationality and he's teaching in a part where, like, outside of his country, let's say, maybe there can be a conflict or something like that.
Okay, I think there is this other conflict I've experienced as a teacher. I've also seen it happen with other teachers. Say there's a problem in class, probably a problem to solve, and a student insists on solving through a particular method, and the teacher insists on the fact that it must be done this way. I think that's another conflict area, because I have seen some teachers that insist that it has to be done this way, and probably the student is being innovative to say that, yeah, I have found a new way to do this, and which may be right. In some cases they are not right, but I believe the way the teacher handles it also can help boost the confidence of the student. So this is another area I have seen conflict come up, because the student sometimes tells you, this is the way my previous teacher taught me, and now you're telling me of. Now both of them may be right, but they are not accommodating each other's view on it. So sometimes that's another area the conflict can come. Say for something like in mathematics, we have the quadratic equation, for instance, and maybe a student is just exposed to solving with factorization method, and then you're bringing up the formula method, and he's saying, no, I don't know this, I've never heard of it, I don't think you're right, sir. And so when it happens like that, it could be a form of conflict, but then it's now the place of the teacher to understand where the student is coming from, and also to tell the student that you are correct, but then there's also another way to do this. It's just an example. There are other scenarios to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think this is the element that is missing from formal education, the feedback, probably in a lot of countries. Maybe some of the education systems already adopted it, as we said, in the Netherlands or other maybe Western or Nordic countries that have this system in place. And also, I think in Denmark, if I'm not wrong, they also teach empathy in schools, which I think is a very important element as well. And yeah, I think this is the element we can borrow from non-formal education, having the feedback session and the teachers or professors to be able to understand there are more opinions and there is more than just the grading system and just the curriculum. There are always opinions coming from outside, and you can learn from different outlets and so on. Thank you very much for all your contributions. Maybe if you have any other thoughts to finish up to end our discussion, which was very productive, I would say.
I want to add some new ideas, because I was in Erasmus in France, and at Erasmus I picked up a photography class, and we had to do a project like a studio shooting. And in the studio shooting, I was going by myself to set up all the lights and all the stuff, and to ask for the models to come and do this and this, and the professors were coming all the time to say, hey, do you need help? I said, no, it's okay, thank you very much. And sometimes they come again and say, do you need help? yeah, maybe with this, and then it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. And after I finished the project account with the results, the teacher was telling to me, like the main teacher, she was telling that you are the only one that didn't ask for help and you didn't need any help. And that put me to think like, yeah, like, and the only thing that came to my mind to reply to the teacher is like, yeah, in Romania nobody helps you, so that's why we're taught to do the things ourselves. And she said, wow, but here the professors help you. Like you just need to ask, and they are happy to come and help you set up the lights and stay with you until you understand everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very useful to also compare different education systems, because then you can see what is working in a place, and then you can also maybe apply some of the things that they are doing and they are successful in doing. And I think we can learn from each other, and we can always try to improve. And this example is very, very useful, because you can see how much an education system can affect you. So you grow up thinking this is the way that the world is functioning. So when you have this experience of traveling and going to a different place and experiencing a different education system, you have a little culture shock, let's say, and you understand that there are other options as well. I think this Erasmus scholarships that we have in Europe are very, very useful, because we get to experience different countries or different education systems, and to complete our knowledge about how the system how things should be done. I think it's a very useful tool that we have. And also studying abroad can also help people broaden their experience and their mindset.
Okay. Thank you so much, Alina, for this wonderful presentation. Thank the rest of
Thank you
you
so much
for thank the rest of you for your participation. It was a beautiful presentation. The contributions were just as good. We learned today from Alina how to build a complete resilient society based on trust, humility, empathy, and how we can use these qualities to enhance tolerance, acceptance, healthy debate, and active listening. How teachers can also play an important role to address conflicts in school through active listening, and how other suggestions we receive from team in Nigeria, how we can also integrate peace education within the education system, how within education systems, and how we can learn also from diverse cultures in other countries, from other countries across the world. Alex gave a series of examples. Kalina also stressed on the societal impact of this, parents being the first educators of their children, and when children pick up certain beliefs from their childhood, they take that to school, emphasizing that she emphasizes that the school can play a role there to have a change of mindset. But that will depends, because children are then they have grown into a certain mindset that until efforts are made, these mindsets can stay with them until they grow up into society, where then they become a more bigger issue, like Alina emphasized further, talking about the case in Romania with the Hungarians and the Romanians. Is just a classical example where we see one group is saying they are better than the other, and all of these comes from the set of training that children get from a much younger age. So it was a very interactive session. Thank all of you, and hopefully our next talk will be in August. By August, we will have a high-level speaker to participate during these meetings. And high-level speaker to speak to us on their area of specialization. And I'm hoping that we will be here to attend, and all of us. Let's use it as an opportunity to enhance our knowledge in the area of peace building. This is a very vast area. You saw Alina was talking about interpersonal conflict at the group level. We have conflict at the tribal level, at the national level, international. There are different sorts of conflict that can over time build into violence and then into violent extremism. And we work in regions that are prone to conflict, and some of the regions we work do have conflict, but there are different scales of conflict, some of which we talked today about classroom and maybe discrimination, racism. These are sort of conflicts that we experience in Europe and elsewhere, but then we do have violent conflicts, which are the sort of conflicts that we do have in our regions in Africa where we do work. It's absolutely important that we follow these case studies and these lecture series. And also some of you can speak as guest speakers sometimes to improve your knowledge, improve your skills, because you will definitely be representing us at other platforms in time to come. And we look forward to you doing that in a very excellent and precise manner. Thank you also, Ruben from Australia. Today you're the only one with us. We do appreciate having you here with us. And I'm glad that you've been able to take out time from your tight schedule to be here. Also, Dino from Germany, thank you for joining us. Again, Bright and Ademola from Nigeria. It was a pleasure having you with us, and we look forward to having you again. With the team from Nigeria, you're going to have some training with me very soon. We will work on that. Chigozie and I work on that, and then we will start the training process. A big thanks to all of you, and if there any other thing left to be said, please say. There's questions, please ask questions, and afterwards we'll round this up. Thank you. If there are no questions and there's nothing to be said, then we will call it a day. Thank you again. I know it's Saturday, you have to get back to your business and your respective duties. Look forward to seeing you again. Thank all of you immensely. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have an amazing day, guys.
Thank you, Alex. Enjoy. Get some sleep.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Bye bye to everyone.